Good evening, everyone. We are going to commence our open session at 8 p.m. And we are going to start off with 3.01, which is our land acknowledgement and mission statement. I will be reading this out. We acknowledge that the Franklin-McKinley School District and our schools are located in the Muwekma Ohlone Nation, the sovereign nation and original people of the skies, land, and waters where we learn and work. The Muwekma Ohlone people are the stewards of these lands and of the teaching and learning that comes from and responds to the needs of the land and people who share it. May our daily lives and work, learning, teaching, and community engagement support the evolving vision of the Muwekma Ohlone for their community and these lands. Now for our district's mission statement. The Franklin-McKinley School District will ensure all 8th grade student graduates have the skills and knowledge to be ready for a college preparatory curriculum in high school. They all will have the ability to pursue a program preparing them for university and/or careers and lifelong learning. So today we have our lovely labor-owned color guard here to present the flag salute. So whenever you're ready, someone can come up here and take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand and move your hats for the presentation of colors? Color guard, advance. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prepare to post the colors. Post the colors. Color guard dismissed. Thank you. Please be seated. Hi, I'm Haiti. I'm in 8th grade, and I'd like to introduce my mom, Anna, and my father, Omar.
Hi, my name is Nadia, and I'd like to introduce my mom, Anna, and my dad, Omar.
Hi, my name is Noraya Alejo. I'm in 6th grade. I'd like to introduce my aunt, Margaret Hernandez.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm in 5th grade, and I would like to introduce my dad, Miguel Delgado.
Hi, my name's Eli. Well, my name's Elijah Alcantara, and introduce my mom, Esmeralda Legaspi.
Can we please give our labor-owned color guard another round of applause, please, for such good work. Okay, we will proceed with our program. We will move on to 3.03, approve, disapprove additions to the agenda. Board members, do we have any? None. Seeing none, we'll move on to 3.04, approve, disapprove, order of the agenda. Seeing none, we will move on to item 3.05, report of action taken in closed session. Superintendent Cruz.
Yeah, thank you, Board President. The closed session minutes for April 26, 22 were approved with 4 in favor and 1 abstention. There are no other actions to report.
Thank you, Superintendent Cruz. We will now move on to item 4, oral communications. Members of the public may address the board on any issue within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board or agenda items. Members of the public may also address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. No action can be taken on any agenda items at this time. Questions may be referred to the administration or put on a future agenda. So with that being said, we had a list of people who signed up to speak, and the first person on our list is Greg Lipman.
Good evening, members of the board, superintendent. My name is Greg Lipman, and I am the CEO and founder of ACE Charter Schools. And I've come here today as I look ahead to my last 5 or so weeks in my current position, just to say thank you to the Franklin-McKinley School District for the opportunity that you gave ACE to be a part of this community and to be a part of your district. It's been an incredible privilege to be able to work with families all over East San Jose and especially in the Santee neighborhood. And without the opportunity to collaborate with you, ACE never would have had the chance to do that. I especially want to take a moment to thank Vice President Rodriguez and Board Member Sanchez when I first had the chance to come to the Santee neighborhood. You took a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of coaching, frankly, on how to do this the right way. And I very much appreciate that. And I know that ACE families and students have benefited from that as well. So thank you to you both for having the will to stick around this long on the board because it's been a while since ACE opened. And I just wanted to express my appreciation to both of you for all the time and wisdom that you shared with me and with ACE. I'd also like to thank Superintendent Cruz. I don't think it was the #1 thing on his agenda when he first took his position here, but he took the time to come and sit with ACE families. I think we had him booked for about a half hour, and he stayed for almost 2 hours sitting and talking with our moms and dads and sharing his story, sharing his experiences, I think starting in Watsonville and in Migrant Ed. And I just want to say thank you to you for your leadership. I'm sure, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's been a fun couple of years, but thank you for being the kind of leader that this community needs and deserves. And thank you for being so open to a charter school and to charter school families in your district and giving them the same measure of care and time that you give to all Franklin-McKinley families. So thank you very much for that. I did want to also say, hopefully, if our email system works, that you received an invitation on June 2nd. We will have a chance at ACE to introduce the community to our new CEO, Kennedy Ilario, who will be there. And it would be wonderful if I could have the chance to thank all of you in person for the opportunity to serve the families of Franklin-McKinley. And if Kennedy could also have a chance to begin the process of earning your trust and developing a relationship with you all. So again, I want to thank you all. It has been an incredible 15-year run. And with, I think, 9 years here in the Franklin-McKinley School District, and we really appreciate the privilege and the opportunity to serve the families of this district. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Greg, and for your service. Next up on the list, we have our board member, George Sanchez, actually.
Yeah, as you know, Sunday was Mother's Day. Most of you know that, hopefully you remember that. And today is also a very special day because in Mexico and throughout Latin America, it's Mother's Day also. And so I want to congratulate all the mothers who are here today. And Annette, Amy, you know, our moms here on the cabinet. And we also have a special board member who's a mother. And today we're make her an honorary Mexican mother. So we have some roses for her today in appreciation of her time, her effort, and the hard work she's put in being a new mom and now a little bit older mom, but still hanging in there, you know. So I have some roses for you.
Thank you, George. Mimona. Those were the two we had on our oral communications list. So with that, we'll move on to our next item, which would be 5.01, our annual charter school update. ACE Esperanza, KIPP Heritage, Rocket Ship Mosaic, Rocket Ship Spark, and Voices College Bound Academy. Amy, take it away.
Okay. Good evening, President Tran, members of the board, Superintendent Cruz. This evening, I am bringing to you an annual report of our charter visits. The visits and the reports I'm going to speak to this evening were in collaboration with our school, charter schools, as well as with Edmetrics and our executive team from Franklin-McKinley. So I just want to thank everybody that was involved. And I know a lot of time and effort and energy goes into the visits and requesting reports and information. So I just want to recognize everybody's efforts and thank them for that. We're in present mode. Okay, so I want to give a little context and purpose for the presentation this evening. So as a school district or an LEA, we are responsible for all charter oversight, and this is outlined in the California Education Code. So I didn't want to put all the ed code language, so I'm just going to give you a synopsis of basically what the language says. So it requires that we have an annual visit, that the charters comply with all reports that are required by law, that Franklin-McKinley as a district, we must monitor the fiscal conditions of the charter schools, as well as communicate any possible changes in status to the charter in a timely manner. So those are our requirements. In addition, so this is a little bit unique in the context, I think, I say this every time I present, it's another unique situation. So we had some new charter legislation in response to COVID-19 and school closures. And so in the AB 130, it adds additional ed code language to specify that all charter schools whose terms that expire within the January 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2025 shall have their term extended by 2 additional years. Okay, so then that's where we see an extension in the MOU. So that they won't be up for official renewal until after that time. So as mentioned in the introduction, we reviewed and visited several schools. We had ACE Esperanza, KIPP Heritage, Rocket Ship Mosaic, Rocket Ship Spark, and Voices College Brown Language Academy. All of their leadership and representation is here this evening. So after I give you an overview of the report and our visits, you will have an opportunity to ask additional clarifying questions or make comments. Okay, so we're just going to do a high level. All this information is in the overview report that is attached to the agenda, in addition to the individual charter school reports that has more data on their student information in comparison with each other, as well as in comparison with Franklin-McKinley. So this, all the data that you'll see in the slides tonight, as well as in the report, is from DataQuest, which I hope that you're familiar with data source, but if not, I'm happy to give you access to that or link. It is a public data warehouse, essentially. So this just gives you a snapshot of the comparative ethnicity of students that are attending the charter schools in comparison to Franklin-McKinley. And the key is on the side. And then demographic groups or student groups. You also see the term subgroups. I prefer to use student groups. You'll see just a comparison of English learner, foster, homeless youth, migrant, special education, and then students with this should be socioeconomically disadvantaged. I'm just going to briefly talk about our process for our visit. So for each charter tour, our team, our educational team in partnership with Edmetrics visited the charter site team. And we went through a process of classroom visits. We conducted interviews, and the interviews were led by Superintendent Cruz, as well as our Edmetrics staff, interview with school leaders, teachers, parents, and students. We wanted to get a comprehensive feeling and input from all educational partners from the charter schools. We also conducted an IEP review. And then we did a debrief with school leadership based on findings and observations from our class visits, as well as interviews that were conducted. We're going to go through just on a high level of each charter. So starting with ACE Esperanza. So each slide will show you just kind of a snapshot of highlights from reviewing the accountability report. And then we're going to share a little bit about our visit, both the wows and then also the wonders. So for ACE Esperanza, I don't know if you really want me, I'll read through, but you can also see responsive approach to challenges stemming from the pandemic, and then strong communication with the parent community. For our visit wows, evidence of high staff morale and a resilient school culture. Commitment to ELD demonstrated by expanded professional development and teacher observation. Pointed at focus on effective strategies for ELD students. Use of Whetstone for classroom observation, tracking, and follow-up, and then use of exit tickets. So that's all evidence that we observed in our visit. And then wonders were potential concerns in declining enrollment since 2018, and then challenges from the pandemic and difficulty in hiring throughout the state have impacted the school, requiring teachers and leadership to substitute teach, raising sustainability questions. Rocket ship Spark. Common instructional language towards rigorous and monitorable learning for students, greater strength in math results for both rocket ship schools, strong focus on ensuring students and families are well supported post-pandemic, and adapting model by decreasing screen time in favor of developmental play and center-focused student work. Our visit wows, families are very happy with their school, citing student support and communication. The school leadership expressed a desire for more collaboration with the district, and then engaged students and good classroom management were observed. Wonders, the excellent PD provided by Rocket Ship means that summer opportunities for students are lacking. And as with other Rocket schools transfer to charter middle schools that begin in 5th grade cause deep drops in enrollment, leadership are considering solutions. Rocket Ship Mosaic. A responsive approach to pandemic, including installation of filtration and hiring a position to support student and families. Gains in student learning are evident in provided data, and then stronger gains in math and ELA. Our visit wows, extensive and impressive PD, 3.5 weeks in the summer, plus more throughout the school year. Organization-wide consistency, make coaching and support for teachers more streamlined. And then wonders are concerns about hiring, as in the case through California, are suggested in reviewing data. And then enrollment losses due to transfers in 5th grade are causing leadership to contemplate changing grade spans. KIPP Heritage. A focus on ELD performance challenges encouraged the school to hire an ELD specialist. The school increased paraprofessional support for special ed students. The schools implemented PD on de-escalation strategies and restorative practices, which has resulted in fewer suspensions in their data. While most schools chose not to take CASP, KIPP did, and results were impressive, although subgroups are trailing. Our visit wows, evidence of strong ELD appeared throughout the school. School leaders very focused on restoring familiarity and embrace of effective routines that were lost during the pandemic. Students were cheerful and articulate about what they liked about the school and what was difficult. Shorter passing periods, it does keep in mind it's middle school. And then wonders. A program with a great deal of scaffolding can make subsequent educational endeavors difficult if the students have not fully absorbed self-efficacy. The leadership appeared to be aware of and thoughtful about this. Okay, and Voices, College Brown Language Academy. Students are assessed a minimum of 3 times a year. The school offers summer school to students who qualify based on CASP or benchmark assessments. Our visit WOW students were engaged, classroom had strong routines, evident appreciation of student work and effort in class aids support student learning, and teachers and leadership are working to provide support to students and families post-pandemic. Then Wonders, there are very few Asian students served and fewer socioeconomically disadvantaged students. Similar to other schools, there are fewer fully credentialed teachers. Overall, effective strategies that were observed in the Franklin-McKinley School District charter schools. We saw structured, evident, and frequent coaching for teachers, often managed and supported by technology, regular assessments to check for learning, plan and deliver remediation, the purposeful use of exit tickets, and then shared instructional strategies. Okay. We're here to answer any clarifying questions. We can, I don't know if you want to take it by school site or how you would prefer to.
Yeah, let's
engage.
let's go with the board members having any questions for Amy at this time. And then we can go to the schools. So board members, do you have any questions based on what Amy presented so far? You wanna?
Thank you, Amy, for the presentation and for your work with monitoring and visiting our charter sites. I had a question in terms of, let's see. So with the special education student population reporting, I know on the actual document you had asked for verification. Were those documents, how were those documents collected, or were they collected, and what
Are you talking about actual like SACE student reports? Is that? Or
correct? I know on the couple there were like some inconsistencies, so I just want to make sure we have the most accurate information.
Yeah, so I think there's inconsistency in the collection, and it's typically like when you do an in-person visit, we would have like our director of special ed present to be able to physically review, you know, some of the sample student files, and that wasn't necessarily always the case this year. There was still significant restrictions in terms of our ability to visit the schools. And so then there was requested follow-up for additional information. And I know with the sensitivity, it's sometimes difficult to also share that like via online. So it was inconsistent in terms of how many reports we got from the schools. It depended on the school site.
Is there a way, I mean, that the district can, as the, you know, it's our responsibility to ensure that the information is accurate. What can be done to make sure that we have the most accurate information? I mean, do you have solutions to that, especially if there's different things that we receive from different school sites?
Yeah. And that might be something that we can also specifically ask the schools that where there was, you know, miss follow-up, because it's also, you know, we can request and then provide opportunity to visit and review the documents. And if we're not afforded the opportunity, then we're in a difficult position. So I think it would also be to ask specifically the schools that were unable to fulfill that item.
So on those items, what we can do is, and what we'll do is ask for additional information and give the charter schools the opportunity to submit that. And if that is still not enough, the information we're seeking, then we can certainly do a follow-up, a formal letter of request if it is one of the items that would be under the Ed code in terms of required or MOU as required by law for them to submit.
So if we could have that information then shared with the board again, so that we have, seems to be a little bit of a gray area right now. So just so we have the most up-to-date information and consistencies across what we're requesting.
Absolutely.
So is the area that I'm hearing you is around the special education student population and services?
Yes. I think the rest of my questions were actually answered from what I had submitted for you, Amy.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, so.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for that, Ramona. Rudy?
Yes. First of all, thank you, Amy, for the great summary of all the charter schools, and we look forward to hearing about our charter schools every year, and this is very good. I wanted to refer to slide number 13 under voices. The second bullet point under wonders, you mentioned that similar to other schools, there are fully credentialed teachers. There are fewer fully credentialed teachers. Before I ask you a question, I would like to give some background information on some research that I had done. I went ahead and extracted the number because that made me wonder about each of our charter schools. So I went ahead and extracted from each of the schools accountability reports, since we didn't have a summary of all of them together. We have and doing the math, I added up all the charter schools that we have in our district that account to us. And we have 103 teachers at all of our charter schools. Of those 103, only 43 are fully credentialed teachers, which is 42%. Out of those 103, 57 are without full credentials, which is 55%. Okay, comparing to now, we've done a lot of comparing to the Franklin-McKinley School District with some of the other areas. So comparing that with our district has less. With our schools, we have less than 2% of teachers who are not fully credentialed. So I thought I would point this out because I'm wondering at each of our charter schools why the disparity in the number of fully credentialed teachers, because that can make an impact on the education of our students, our young people, having qualified teachers. And now they could be interns, they could have provisionary permits and so forth, but that's quite a number of teachers. And some of the reasons I think about when I look at our charter schools is maybe their turnover is high. They've got to replace credentialed teachers, and that's why it's happened, because it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. And another reason is maybe, the COVID pandemic had an impact. Why didn't it have an impact on us? The school district, the traditional public schools. So I'm thinking, so what did we do differently? Maybe that we could help the charter schools in hiring fully credentialed teachers. So what I would like, and I don't expect the charter schools to answer this question as they come up and answer questions, but what I would like to know while we're in that accountability reporting time is I would like for them to come up with a plan on how they're going to provide more fully credentialed teachers for our children and provide the quality education that we hope that they're getting, that the same quality of education that our Franklin-McKinley students are getting. For example, voices, out of 18 teachers, 67% are without full credentials. At Rocket Ship Mosaic, out of 21 teachers, 62% are without full credentials. At Rocket Ship Spark, out of 20 teachers, 80% are without full credentials. That means only 4 teachers at their school have full credentials. At ACE, out of 15 teachers, 53%, so about half are without full credentials. And then at KIP, which has the best numbers, still 31% are without full credentials. So not even comparing to what Franklin-McKinley, our traditional schools are at in terms of have teachers teaching our students with fully credentialed teachers. So I'm very concerned about this because it's gotten worse. And I would like to point out back in 2019 at one of our charter schools, we had a letter of concern go out to them on May 30th of 2019 about teacher credentialing. And it doesn't, it's a very extensive letter with the plan from that charter school about, and I could share it with you, about teacher credentialing, the concerns that they responded to our Superintendent Cruz about. And I don't know if they've met their promise. So I'm very concerned about this, and I would like to, if any of the charter schools would like to get up later and respond to that, I would appreciate that. But I know that you probably don't have a plan, or maybe you do have a plan. But if you do have a plan, share it because I think it's very important. And I think it's critical to our students receiving a quality education. And by the way, if you say that you have, it's because of the COVID pandemic, I understand, but I'm not buying it because our district made it through it.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Board members, any other questions here? George?
I was just going to ask a point of clarification here in terms of the effective strategies observed in FMSD charter schools. And you mentioned purposeful use of exit tickets. Can you explain a little bit what that refers to? Exit
Yeah.
tickets?
So an exit ticket is a way of like a informal, quick assessment of students and their understanding of the lesson or skill that was taught in that particular lesson that day. And so it's a way for teachers to quickly be able to ascertain understanding for students. So if they're doing, let's say you're doing I always do early elementary. You're doing a phonics lesson and you want to do a quick understanding, like you're doing short A, and then you do a quick little, like they call it exit tickets, but you just have one question or a couple questions, the kids answer,
Okay.
and then the teachers will get a quick idea, understanding of how well the students absorbed or understood the lesson. And then it also can inform reteaching or if you have to do small groups. So it's something that, you know, we look for evidence of collecting on the spot data for students and being able to respond to in your instruction.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm.
Daniel?
Yes, also thank you for this information. I really appreciate it. I'm just curious to know, at what point do we get kind of a broader set of information with regards to like their fiscal solvency? I know a part of, you know, the education code requires us to look at their fiscal solvency over a period of years moving forward, as well as their academic achievement as it measures against the district in terms of, you know, apples to apples.
So the more extensive review takes place at renewal. Right now, we do look at areas of concern. If we see that the problematic piece this year is the lack of standardized data and things like that, to sort of be able to compare apples to apples because we don't have the same assessment, those kinds of things. So we will be looking forward to the CASP data that we're all going to have this coming year from the spring. In terms of the financial piece, we actually review that a couple of different times when the charter schools are required to submit reports to us, and our business department reviews those to make sure that they're in compliance, that they're meeting their financial obligations. And if at any point in time we see a concern, then we would issue a letter of concern to the charter school for them to respond. So I can tell you that our business department has been updating, reviewing those documents, and we have no concerns at this time in regards to their financials in their and in some cases, obviously their enrollment, right, is tied to finances, and so at those charter schools where we saw a decline in enrollment, our business services made sure that they looked at that and see if there was any concerns, and there are not at this time.
And then Amy, one last clarifying question on your presentation, and thank you for that. Oh, sorry, before I get to my question, Mona.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up to Board Member Martinez's question? So Superintendent Cruz, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So if we're waiting till renewal, do charters, to give feedback, or do charters have the opportunity to get feedback prior to renewal on if there is a concern?
Yes, so annually through this process, they get feedback. The deeper dive in regards to that happens at renewal, but this is the annual report, and our visits are intended to be able to make sure that there's opportunities for us to give feedback, bring up concerns if we see them earlier rather than waiting till renewal. I was just in terms of what the deeper dive in terms of the disaggregation of data and going into a lot of more detail happens at renewal. But we did look at their accountability reports. We went and visited the school to make sure that we gave feedback in regards to what we saw in the classroom, what we heard from parents and students and staff. And so through that whole review is what we've provided feedback to the charter school. So it's not waiting 5 years and now 7 years for some of them because of the extension. So we're doing that annually. But that deeper analysis is done at renewal.
So in terms of feedback that's being given annually to our charters, is that captured in this, in the presentation information, or is that separate? Like if there was any serious feedback that was given, is that something that would be identified here?
It would be identified if we had seen a significant concern that we had to bring to their attention about not meeting sort of education code based on these things, or just in general. We would have highlighted this in the report, but we have not found that. We checked credentials, we checked IEPs, we checked all the required procedures that we want to make sure that are in place to make sure that they're abiding by education code and they're providing the necessary services. We did not find those things to be able to bring them to your attention.
Thank you for the clarification.
Is there any other questions, board members, for Amy at this point? So Amy, my clarifying question was for the charter tour description slide. This one, I was more interested in how the interviews process worked. So when our team goes out to the charter schools to interview the teachers, the parents, and the students, how were the teachers, parents, and students picked to be interviewed?
Yeah, they're selected by the charter schools.
So the charter
they
schools select.
so they select, we say that we'd like to speak with parents and students and teachers, and then I don't know that you could ask them like their individual process, but that's ready for us in our team visit. So we go, because it's pretty scheduled in our agenda. So we go and we meet with the leadership. And then after we have our initial intake, to just get an overview of the school, then we break into teams. So we have teams that visit classrooms, and then we have teams that stay back and do the interviews. And they're pretty tightly scheduled, right? So it'll be like teacher and then parents and then students.
Spend the entire day there to do
We're
that.
there for a few hours in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
A good, I would say a good half day to be able to do that, because then we also then do a debrief based on our classroom observations, as well as information that we heard from their educational partners or their stakeholders. And then we ask any follow-up questions or clarifying questions. And that's kind of, I think, have I missed anything, one?
And I'll just say that all those interviews are conducted without charter staff being present.
Thank you.
So that students and families and staff can feel freely knowing that they're not in the room, and we do not report out to the charter schools what individual students or staffers or parents would have said. So to create a safe environment for them if there are concerns that they can bring up. I'll tell you that the students, I think, Amy mentioned, I mean, the students are always the best of all of them. I'll just say that. They are transparent as they could be. They will let you know if they are not happy with something. And, I always enjoyed that part of the day, because the kids are a blast. The kindergartners, the first graders, they are so articulate about what they like and what they don't like about their school. And we share that with the principal to make sure that the students know that there may be that their voice is being heard by their side, and so that I can tell you that they don't hold back.
That's good. That's good to hear. Thank you for that process. I was more interested in understanding how the people were picked in the interviews and better understanding. As far as our process goes, we have an intake form that we ask the similar questions to all teachers, parents, and students.
Yeah, it's very structured, and we make sure to replicate it. So we ask each charter the same sets of questions. We vet that out ahead of time as a team to make sure that we're capturing, like a well-rounded set of questions, so that we get, as clear as picture as possible from the groups that we're meeting with.
So the charter schools get those questions ahead of time so they know what to expect?
I don't think they do. No, they don't get them ahead of time. They get the agenda ahead of time of
Yep.
like how to plug in the, people that we need to speak with, but no, we bring our own set of questions at that time.
Great, thank you for that. So I believe that's all the questions you have just for you, Amy.
Okay.
So now let's shine the spotlight on our first charter school,
Okay.
which would, and we're gonna go by alphabetical order. And because this is Greg's last 5 weeks, so let's go with Ace first.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jarrett Poston, the principal of Ace Esperanza Middle School. Thanks for having us out tonight. And if you have any questions, let me know.
So I believe we submitted questions beforehand. I don't know if you have that on hand. If not, we can start with those questions first. And then if there's any additional questions that, and this goes for all charter schools, by the way. If there's any, answer the questions that we sent on this Google spreadsheet first. After that, any additional questions board members will ask at the time.
All right. I don't believe I have access to the Google spreadsheet, but I think I got some questions sent to me.
I can also read it out to you.
If it's the same one, I'm good. The first one was about mild to moderate and moderate to severe disabilities, and if our teachers have the credentials that match them. Is that what you all have? Great. So our school has no students that have a moderate to severe IEP. We have several that are mild to moderate, and we do not employ any teachers currently that have a moderate to severe credential. We offer incentives for teachers to add on credentials to specific areas where we need as an organization. If our school ever does need one, we would either hire a teacher with the appropriate credential, or we would ask them to add on the appropriate credentials to their set of credentials they already have. And like I said, we provide some incentives for teachers to do that with not just this in SPED, but with other areas where we may be of need.
Board members, do you have any follow-up for that first question? And we can move on to the second question.
Okay, the second one was talking about, from a budgetary standpoint, will ACE be able to continue to account for expenses if our enrollment continues to decrease? A lot of this has been yes, we've done some financial analysis as an organization across all of our schools about our viability and how long we can sustain and at what levels and all of that. Our school is well within our boundaries of what we need to sustain our school within. One thing that we've been learning at my site in particular is just about our enrollment flow and about how we sustain our enrollment at an easier rate throughout the years. We find it fairly easy for our school to recruit 7th and 8th graders. But those students leave very quick. They're not in our school. It starts in 5th grade and goes through 8th. And so in the past couple of years, you've seen our enrollment decline. And a lot of that is our grade levels had multiple cohorts in one grade level. And then as those students disappear or graduate and go on to 9th grade into high school, our enrollment dips. And so what my school has been working on in particular is about learning how to recruit appropriately the students that we seek to serve in the lower grades, so that our enrollment is steady and consistent and more predictable. That's been challenging ever since Google made their announcement of moving in downtown. Many of the students that we seek to serve have moved elsewhere, out to maybe where you got your start in Fresno and surrounding areas. But our school's been working really hard to figure out how to recruit the students that our mission asks us to serve, and in a sustainable and reliable way. Right now, we are on track to be larger than we are this year. So I see that trend reversing. And as I said, we don't really recruit 7th and 8th graders. They tend to find their way to our school. And so our efforts have been really on prioritizing 5th and 6th grades so that we can sustain our school over the years. So on the budgetary side, yes, I didn't do that work. Our central office did more of the long-term financial stability work. My team's been focusing a lot more on the enrollment and making sure that is level and sustainable for the next several years.
Members, any follow-up on this question, Rudy? Oh, not on this question. So you do?
Yeah, thank you. In follow-up to the question about recruitment, what is the general plan in terms of how do you recruit, particularly as to broad demographics matching those demographics of the district?
Yeah, great question. Broadly, that hasn't been the issue. The biggest difficulty for us has been connecting with the Asian and Vietnamese populations, and our school and team, and largely from the push from here, from you all, we've added people to our team that are fluent in Vietnamese. We have a community engagement team at our central office now that doesn't just support my school, but supports all, that has some Vietnamese speakers. And then we have, my school itself does have a small recruitment team. And in that team, we now have we have a spot for a fluent Vietnamese speaker, which has been very helpful for us in some of our conversations. Our Vietnamese population has increased. And so being able to speak with our families in their native language was very difficult. Before we were using a phone translation service, and now we can actually have a person sitting in the room with us and translating live with us. Much more personable and more beneficial, I think, for everybody present. It's been a small increase so far, and I think that is largely because of the pandemic. We were just not, frankly, allowed to recruit in our old traditional ways because of the pandemic and because of just trying to keep everybody safe, you know, our prospective students and families and our staff. I suspect that next year and in the coming years that will change. I don't know if that answers your question or if you had any other specific elements.
No, I mean, the question that I'm coming from is mostly from the education code itself, requiring charter schools to specifically recruit almost to the identical levels of the diversity of the district that's the authorizing district. So I was just interested in knowing kind of where you were falling to match that requirement under the law.
Got it. Yeah. So you may have been referring to me saying we're trying to reach our target student, and ACE started to work with students who struggled in their previous schools. So demographically, we're agnostic. We want to match the district's thing, like the district's enrollment demographics. So demographically, we are trying to match the district's local demographics. What I'm talking about specifically is how we target students who are or have experienced struggle in their previous schools. And I don't know if I was confusing you in talking about our target student versus the demographics. Does that clarify that?
That's your answer.
Okay, awesome.
May I add something to that? Because just so that Board Member Martinez can understand the history of how ACE was brought to our district, was back when they submitted the petition to charter in our district. One of the reasons why we voted to bring in charter schools in our district was to meet one of the areas that were not being met by our district. And unfortunately, because of the achievement gap among the Latino student population, ACE has been working very diligently on decreasing that achievement gap. And that was one of the reasons why we approved their charter, was to work specifically on that one demographic and target Latino students who were struggling at other schools. And in fact, that's exactly what they did when they first chartered in our district. So if you look at their mix of diversity, it's almost 90% Latino, and then everyone else, which is exactly what we had hoped that ACE would achieve when they were recruiting the students of greatest need in regards to the Latino achievement gap. That was a big concern, and I think it's worked to a degree in that area, and that's why their demographics don't match our district's mix. And in terms of recruiting, they recruit based on those students of greatest needs from other schools, because that's why we have the disparity in our Latino achievement gap. Did that help?
I don't know.
Like I said, that's the answer.
All right. You can move on to the last question that we have on the school.
Great. Pull up the last question one more second. It says in the accountability report, the SPED categories were cut off, but the numbers don't add up to 45. I saw that. There was, an entire category was cut off. So you had our OHI, our autism, everything except for our specific learning disability. And that's our highest category of students. So I don't know, on my version of the report, it's there, but I think maybe in the PDF, I don't exactly know how that works, but the specific learning disability area was cut off. There are 27 students that have a specific learning disability. I did catch one other discrepancy, and I think that might have just been enrollment from when we did the report till today. But today our reporting shows that there are 2 students with speech and language impairment. But I think in the original report, it said 4. But again, I don't exactly know the discrepancy or why that was there, other than we submitted this report, I think in early January, and it's May now. But our number is 45 of our total students, and all the other numbers were accurate except for specific learning disability and speech and language impairment.
Board members, do we have any follow-up questions to that? Good on the numbers. All right, then board members, you can ask your additional questions at this point. Rudy?
Just a real short answer question. On your school governance, are any of your board members represented by parents of Esperanza students? And if not, why? If it's yes, great, you don't have to answer. Go expound on that.
Yes, one of our parents is on our board, and she's a parent. She had 3 children in our school. Currently, 1 is still in our school, and her 2 sons are at our high school.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jared.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So our next school on our list, we have Rocket Ship Mosaic.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Duprell, the principal of Rocket Ship Mosaic.
So Kristen, do you have the questions ahead of time? If not, I can read it to you.
I do. I'll just go ahead.
So we'll start off with the first question.
All right. So the question is, does Romo provide students with access to internet connectivity devices to complete homework assignments using technology? So yes, we do. We did make hotspots available to those students who did need them. We continue or?
I realized I didn't go in alphabetical order because it would have been Kip next, not Rocket Ship Mosaic. Sorry. Sorry, Kip.
No.
Sorry, just continue, please.
Continue? Sure. And we also partnered with the San Jose Public Library for families who also needed hotspots.
Okay, board members, are there any follow-up questions to this one? If not, then you can move on to the second one.
Right, the second question, is it regular practice to have mixed grade level students working on skills in other grade level classes? And that is not a regular practice that happens throughout our school. Rather, we do so in 2 instances. One, when we have an SST, if we see that support from another teacher in another grade level is an appropriate intervention that is agreed upon by the family, we try that out for 6 weeks to see if that supports that Rocketeer. Additionally, if there is a student who is advanced for their grade level, we may put them in a guided reading group in a grade level above, so that way it's personalized and individual for the student's need.
Great. Board members, again, any follow-up questions to that? Mona?
I mean, I'm sure it's part of the SST process, but I just want to ask. So in terms of students who might be in a lower grade level, as one of the observations when our team came out, has the team considered the social emotional impacts of the student being in a lower grade level classroom?
Yes, and that's why that's one of the interventions that we can come up with in the SST. That's usually not the only intervention for a student who that is. And again, we have parental consent, and we always see after 6 to 8 weeks if that was a successful intervention, given the need that that student was presenting at the time.
Okay, please proceed to the third question.
Do all Rocket Ship board meetings take place during the workday? So our board meetings have varying start times to accommodate different schedules. Some start in the early evening, while others begin in the evening.
I was just looking through, thank you for providing the link to access the board meetings. And I noticed most of the ones from this year have all been during the workday. So I'm just wondering, is that a plan for the future, or is that had been a past practice?
I'll let Representative from Rocket Ship, since has a little bit more context on board meetings than me.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, so our board meetings do start at varying times throughout the day. So sometimes they do start throughout the day and sometimes they start in the evening. There's also a retreat that takes place as an all day, I think during the summer, early fall. And so your question was, is that?
I'm just wondering, like, based on what I was reviewing on the website, it seemed that they were all during the workday so far this year. So is that, I mean, is that the plan moving forward, or is there a plan to accommodate more parents or other community members who might want to participate? Or
yeah, so this is actually something we have talked to our communities and our families. While we were going through the process of adding parents to the board, we also engaged just in different availability. It became viscerally clear that the families that we serve don't necessarily all have 9 to 5. And so also thinking about flexibility, how do we adapt? How do we make sure it's accessible to all? So that was part of the thinking. So we do have some that start during the day. We have some that start in the evening. I will say that in the past, we didn't have any that started in the evening. That is more of a new practice that we initiated after communicating with our communities and making sure that was more accessible.
Thank you.
Okay, please proceed to the board.
Mr. President.
Manuel.
Just one question regarding your board meetings. Do the board meetings occur within the jurisdiction boundaries of FMSD?
So with state guidance, the board meetings need to happen where in the county where most of the charter schools reside. We have 10 schools here in San Jose, so they take place in the San Jose office, which is located close to the airport.
And then can you clarify, you do broadcast those to the sites for parents to access?
Absolutely. So pre-pandemic, they were broadcasted at every site. So every site, including our FMSD schools, had access to the board meeting. So parents could go on to the campus and have access there where they would be listening, the translation would be provided, and they have a visual, on a screen. Now, because board meetings, they were on Zoom for a while, and so we weren't broadcasting on campuses. As board meetings will resume again in person, they will continue to be broadcasted at every single campus as is in accordance with state law. Up here just in case.
Is there any other follow-up questions to this, board members? Thank you. Kristen, you can proceed with the fourth question.
So the next question, please include numbers to show the breakdown of federal and state funding under school fiscal updates. So approximately 13.3% of Rocketship Mosaic's projected revenue for the 22-23 academic year is driven by federal sources, and then the remaining 86.7% is driven by state funding sources.
Do you happen to have the actual dollar amounts for how much funding was received?
Good evening, everyone. Danny Echeverry, Director of Schools. Recognize most of you. Great question. So the overall total was roughly 9 million. 1.2 was federally funded, 7.8 state funded. That does also take into account COVID relief funding or ESSER funding for this year. So it's a little bit augmented per pre-pandemic numbers, but roughly 9 million total.
Thank you.
Does that include grant funding as well?
Well, I mean, it includes federal grants and state grant funding. So for example, LCAP funding or Title I funding, but no external funding sources included there.
Private company funding, anything like that? Or
no philanthropic donations or anything like that.
Remembers any other follow-up to this question? Not, then Kristen, can you proceed to the last question?
Yes, and then the last question. So the way it was written appears to be directed to FMSD staff. To my understanding, we have shared all the data that has been requested of us.
Actually, this was a comment that I noticed in the accountability report. It appears to be from Rocketship schools that I noticed from both sites. that was the exact comment, that there was data that was requested of the district that the district did not provide. I think it was pertaining to on page 11. Pertaining to the district's demographic and achieving parity per AB 1505. It says we do not have access to the district data for the 21-22 school year. In the past, this data has been provided to us by the district. And that was the same comment provided by Rocket Ship Spark. I'm just wondering what was the data that was being requested and who was it requested from our district? So that we can...
That is a really good question. I'll have to follow up with our team and circle back if there's any outstanding data. I'm not sure that we are expecting any data from you, so I'm not sure why that was included in the report. So let me circle back on that.
Just want to make sure there's nothing that we're
Yeah,
missing here.
I feel like we're in good standing, but I'll circle back with our team and make sure there are no outstanding questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, board members, follow-up questions to that? If not, then I'll entertain any additional questions. Sure. Rudy?
I just have one quick question and Amy mentioned it in the overall summary, is that in regards to your declining enrollment, it seems to be really centered on grade levels between 4 and 5, where, I mean, in grade 4, you have 108 students, so you expect most of them to stay and go to grade 5, but this year you only have 28. So have you been able to come up with a reason why that's happening and a resolution on what you can do, what you're going to do about it?
So part of Rocket Ship's pillars is to really support parent empowerment and school choice. So because many of the middle school options are charter schools, they start in 5th grade. So we do allow families, if they want to get a spot in a charter school that they have chosen and selected to be best for their student, we do encourage them to move to a middle school option that best serves them. We will still serve any 5th grade student that remains, but what we do find is many of our 5th or 4th graders do graduate with us to go on to a 5th grade middle school.
So you're keeping your 5th grade level, knowing that you're encouraging them to go to a different school?
It varies from year to year, but we do want to encourage our families to choose a middle school option that best fits the student's need.
So there is no resolution. You're just, I'm hearing what you're doing, but I'm not quite getting the thought process. Is it that you're saying that, okay, go ahead and leave, go to the other charter school that's middle grade school that starts at 5th grade, and we'll just keep who we have, which is 28. Is that what you're saying? Did you find a reason why that's happening, or is that really, is the reason is you're encouraging them to go to a charter school that starts in the 5th grade?
We're encouraging our families to choose a school option that best serves them. It could be a charter school. It could also be a traditional public school. So it really depends on what that family wants. We are going to encourage families who want to move on to that 5th grade charter option. And what we do on the enrollment end is we make sure that our K through 4 has healthier enrollment, so that way we ensure that our school is fully enrolled.
Well, okay, so when Rocket Ship Mosaic and also Rocket Ship Spark petitioned the charter in our district, the agreement was that they would have certain grade levels. And now you're not meeting the grade levels that were agreed to on the petition to charter, because you're encouraging them to go at the 5th grade to a different school.
I wouldn't say we're encouraging them. We're allowing families to make the best decisions for themselves, which could be to stay, which could also be to go. And we've had a 5th grade classroom. We've had 2 5th grade classrooms in the past. We've had 1 5th grade class. It does vary from year to year. So as of now, going into next year, for example, we still intend to have a 5th grade class, so that we are, well, it depends. Right now we're doing intent to return. So we have about 110-ish 4th graders, and we've only gotten responses from half. So we're still waiting for the other half to decide if they're going to stay or if they're going to leave.
But what are you doing to keep them at your school?
Well,
Yeah, thanks, Danny.
Thank you. I also want to be clear. So within the terms of our charter, we are serving all the grade levels that we set out to serve, right? At Rocket Ship Spark, it's TK through 5th grade, and at Rocket Ship Mosaic, it's kinder through 5th grade. It also, I want to layer on here, you need to understand the physical layout of the building and the physical space we have available. So at Rocket Ship Mosaic, we have enough classrooms for 4 kindergartens, 4 first, 4 second, 4 third, 4 fourth, and then 1 to 2 5th grade cohorts. And so that's actually within our model. And we don't have any enrollment concerns in terms of our fiscal stability and revenues. What I would say is if we were to retain more than say 40 to 50 5th graders, we would actually be exceeding the physical limitations and capacity of the building. So year over year, Mosaic has been fiscally sound, has served all the grade levels within its charter, and we've sustained a great reduction from 4th graders to 5th graders, so that we generally have upwards of 105 to 110 4th graders, and then somewhere in the range of 25 to 40 5th graders the following year.
So then it sounds like capacity wise, you're encouraging 4th graders to leave because you don't have room for them. Is that what you just said?
No, what I'm saying is, to echo Mrs. Duprell's point, when families choose to move to a different school for 5th grade so that they have option and choice for a 5th grade middle school, we allow them to go. We don't have any say in what they choose for their children. It does ultimately work out for us. So we have middle school expos, we have middle school fairs, we present our families with all the various choices. We don't encourage any family to leave, but we do also accept that we roughly retain 90 to 95% of kids between the other grade levels, and then we see a big exodus between 4th and 5th grade. But I think it's mostly driven by family choice and not by any actions that the school takes.
Okay, so if all 108 4th graders decided to stay and come back next year, you have room for them. Is that what you said?
If that were to happen, I'll say this, in our 12-year tenure, that's never happened. So if that were to happen, we would work with families to find a solution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board members, any additional questions for Rocket Ship Mosaic? If not, then thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
And I apologize to Kip because I forgot my alphabets for a second, but please proceed.
That's okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Danica Donnelly. I'm the principal at Kip Heritage. So we received 3 questions, and I apologize if we received some that I think were meant for the district. And so if I didn't answer any by the end, please let me know. Our first question was, how many students are in our specialized teaching program, and how have those numbers changed over the years? So our specialized teaching program was a program that specifically designed for students with IEPs that had moderate to severe needs. That program was temporarily paused in 2021 due to enrollment, but we're really excited to open it up again next year. We've already secured the hiring that we need for it, and we are currently in the process of reviewing the IEPs that we've received on SACE as they come in. And our current estimate is that we'll have about 2 to 3 students for next year. We're expanding each year. Next year, we're just starting with 5th and growing each year.
Follow up to that. So when you say that it was paused in 2021 due to enrollment, does that mean there were no students who needed the program?
Yeah, so we had 2 students in the program. They graduated from the program and went on to high school. And so we didn't have any incoming students with that severe of needs and IEPs. And so we're excited next year we do have them. And so we've secured the hiring we need to support those students and to make sure that we don't have any lapse in enrollment. We really are focusing on our recruitment specifically around this program and SPED in general so that we can continue it, because it's been a great addition to the school just in general to be able to provide support to all of our students.
And do you have the staffing, the credentialed staff to serve those students?
Yes, we do. So currently right now we have 1 student or 1 staff member who serves our mild to moderate, and they have a clear credential. And we are hiring the person we already hired for our SCP program is actually coming from the same program that our current ed specialist came from. So she's graduating with her master's in a few weeks, getting her credential. And then if there's any final things she has to do over the next year, we have a plan in place to make sure she gets her credential.
You, any other follow-up questions? Board members? Please
There was
proceed.
one, yeah.
Please proceed to the second question.
Okay, awesome. So the next question was around our reclassification process for our students with IEPs and our multilingual learners, and how that differentiates for students with mild or moderate or severe needs. So we have a criteria in place for students in gen ed, and then one with mild needs. For students with mild needs, they only need to achieve one of the criteria for demonstration of basic skills. So that could be F&P testing, where they're no more than 3 grade levels below, score a 50% on the ELA interim, or an overall level 2 on SBAC for ELA. They still need to demonstrate proficiency on the LPAC with a 4 and get the teacher evaluation and family support as well. For moderate to severe students, the proficiency is based on the alternative LPAC, the VCALPS, and their IEP team is the one that determines what the basic skill is that they'll be assessed on. And instead of a gen ed teacher doing the recommendation, it's the education specialist.
Any follow-up questions, board members? Great, then board members, do you have any additional questions for Kip? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So now we will move on to Rocket Ship Spark, and followed by that will be Voices.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Hanlon. I'm the principal of our Rocket Ship Spark campus.
Great. Thank you, Samantha, for being here. Do you have the list of questions in front of you?
do.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
Please read them out and then answer the questions.
Perfect.
If you have any additional questions?
All right, that sounds great. The first question that we were asked was about an inconsistency in reporting of special populations. I'm unsure if there was a clerical error on our part, but as of today, our special ed percentage is 9.6%. So those percentages do vary across the school year depending on enrollment fluctuations. So when we are asked for that data, we do provide the data for what is current as of that specific day. And so the percentages that we gave could have been due to where we were with an enrollment.
So you said every time you update the special education percentage in the report, it's to the current day. So that's why there's a discrepancy between page 10 and page 12.
Yes, I would have to look back at the report and I don't have it with me, but I can. But depending on when we pull the data, the percentages can fluctuate depending on enrollment.
Board members, do you have any follow-up on this question? 9.6% or?
I guess I'm just confused. If it's all on the same accountability report, why are there two numbers? Was the report not compiled at the same time?
I would, do you want to?
Yeah. Sorry, I was the one who helped respond to that question today. I'm not sure why there was a discrepancy there. That might have honestly been a clerical error on our part. The 8.6% seems realistic for where we were at the beginning of the year. We have had some special ed enrollment and some some classification throughout the year. So our current numbers were 53 students. That also encompasses students with speech only. So 53 students out of 553. So that's how we're getting the 9.6 as of today. So I think the 8.6 was realistic for the beginning of year, and the 9.6 is accurate as of today. The 10% that was on the second page, I'm not sure, that might have honestly been a clerical error on our part. Yeah. So apologies for that.
Okay. Any other questions here, board members? If not, Samantha, can you please proceed to the second question?
Absolutely. The second question is around the school leadership team at Spark requesting greater collaboration with the district. Here, what I can say, we're very open to collaboration. Before, I've worked in traditional public schools for 8 years. I've been in charters for 8 years, and I think both bring things that we can learn from one another. We started out the school year with partnering with Sylvandale Middle School, and I was able to meet the principal. But once the beginning of the year started and we got busy, that tapered off a little bit. But I do think there would be opportunity for us to do walkthroughs of one another's campuses, join for any kind of principal PDs that happen to learn, the charters can learn from what the district is doing and the district can learn from what the charter is doing, especially because we have Sylvandale Middle School right next to us. It is a definitely missed opportunity for collaboration.
Board members, follow up on that? Nope. Please proceed to the third question.
There's actually, thank you for responding to that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you go back to the first question? Because there's actually a second part to that. One of the other concerns that was highlighted by the district staff, I think was,
oh, there we go. Yes, I can respond to that. All right. The second portion of that question says, in response to a request for information on services provided for special education services, the school provided a description of ELD strategies. Mr. Echeverry, do you know that?
Yeah, I think that also might have been an error on our part. Was there specific questions around our special ed program?
I think it was just a general, like wanting to know more about what the structure of services look like.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming obviously ELD strategies are great for all students, but if there are specific services and the way that's tied to special education specifically.
Yeah, I think we can speak to our special education approach generally. I think it's heavily driven by a desire to see inclusion to the greatest extent possible for students with special needs. That said, there are pull-out spaces, pull-out periods of the day where we need to focus on individualized IEP goals for students. But you will see throughout the day, the majority of our students with special needs are fully included with a lot of push-in support and collaboration between general ed teacher and ed specialists.
Thank you.
Please proceed with the third question.
All right. The next question was around Rocket Ship Spark having any plans to extend summer programming beyond professional development. And right now we have a partnership with YMCA. We are looking to expand our summer offerings. And so we would like to use grant funding, and we're looking at right now partnering with Boys and Girls Club to be able to offer extended school year or summer programming for our Rocketeers.
Quick follow-up to that. So for the Boys and Girls Club, you mentioned extended school year. I just want to make sure, are you specific or specifying extended school year, which is for students who qualify under their IEP, or is that run through Rocket Ship?
We do have an extended school year for our students with special needs. But what I'm speaking about is right now we have YMCA and we want to extend and have summer programming for our students, especially as we look at our academic data coming back from COVID. And so we are looking at a second provider, and that second provider would be Boys and Girls Club. We don't have all of the details ironed out yet.
Okay, but the students who qualify for extended school year still receive those services outside of the Boys and Girls
That
Club.
is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could just, as a follow-up, is this with your ELOP monies? And these are not going to be staffed with credential teachers. This is just more of an enrichment.
That is correct.
Any other questions on this, board members? If not, please proceed to the next question.
All right. Is the data from fall 21-22 to winter 21-22 comparable? Did the students regress in most areas? And no, our students did not regress from fall to winter of this school year. If you look at our NWEA assessments, our students were on track to make 1 year of growth in reading and in math. Now that we've actually just finished our end of year assessments, our students are on track for 1.1 years of growth in reading and math as well.
Any follow-up questions? Good so far. So you can proceed to the last question on the spreadsheet.
All right, final question. How are teachers without a full credential supported when they make up 80% of all teachers? All of our teachers are fully authorized to teach under state credentialing law and hold valid credentials. Rocketship does have a credentialing team to support and oversee the credentialing process. In terms of the support our teachers provide, we have 4 coaches on campus, so assistant principals and myself. Teachers receive weekly PD and a lot of PD during the summer, about 3 weeks. In addition, we have weekly coaching, so our teachers get coached weekly. And then we have common planning time, so our teachers have professional development at the end of each school day. So they are getting a very, very robust development model.
Board members, do you have any follow-up questions for this one?
I had a question. In terms of the credentialing and particularly those teachers who are not fully credentialed, do you have a program in place where they end up getting a full credential in their subject content? And if that is so, what's the timeline for those credentialing?
Yeah, so Rocketship partners with National University for credentialing, and our teachers who are still working on credentialing go through the National University process. It is a 2-year program. At the end of that 2 years, they are fully credentialed in terms of having the kind of, I guess you would say, official credential.
And when you hire the teachers that don't have a full credential, is that something that you tell the teachers, like when they get hired, that you expect them to be fully credentialed eventually?
That is correct. Yes, that is an understanding that the teachers do have.
All right, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Can
absolutely.
you clarify, is that 2 year to get their preliminary credential? Is that a clear credential?
It is 2 years to get their preliminary credential and then another year on top of it to clear.
So there would be interns on an intern credential because a PIP and STIP are 1 year. Is that correct? Annette?
That is correct. Yes.
Only when they're interns are they able to be on that 1 year.
Yes.
Do you get high turnover before they get credentialed?
Can you repeat that?
You get high turnover before they receive their credentials?
Do we
They
have-
actually stick throughout the 3 years to get fully credentialed?
I would say, like, in terms of our teachers, the 2-year program for National University, the teachers that at my school anyway, that are in the program are very dedicated and want to stay and see getting their credential. So I think that's actually a draw for many people to come to Rocketship, is the opportunity to get the credential. And so from my experience, this is my 2nd year with Rocketship, and I have not seen high turnover of our staff who are in the National University program.
How long has Rocketship Spark been in?
This is our 9th year in existence.
9th year.
Yeah.
We still have upwards to 80% of your teachers not fully credentialed.
Only 4.
So to me, that's a little bit of I don't understand that data when you just told me that your teachers don't get high turnover, because theoretically by now you should have a much higher number of credentialed teachers at your site. So are these the steps, new practice steps that you're taking to make sure that teachers are actually fully credentialed by their 3rd year? Or is it something that you just haven't really touched on?
Well, I've been with Rocketship 2 years, and the program that we partnered with last year, I don't remember what it was called. I believe the National University is a new partnership this year. We did have a different program last year. Mr. Echeverry, do you remember what it was?
Yeah. I can help respond to that too. We partnered with Relay previously, and we saw sorry, not Relay, Reach as an organization, and we saw a turnover in their leadership at a certain point. And so the program quality and completion rate would drop significantly. So we switched to partner with National University. I would say, I think there's a broader question here around teacher retention and what we're doing to retain our teachers. And I would say that our support with credentialing has been a really important, like Mrs. Hanlon was saying, a big draw for us, right? So I don't think that even 3-4 years ago, we were offering nearly as many supports with getting teachers credentialed. And so it is something that we need to put in place, not only for compliance, but also to build retention and investment long-term, right? So I think another thing worth naming though, is our teachers do work extended school years, they work extended school hours. And when we talk about the quality of the program we offer, again, similar to Superintendent Cruz's comments earlier, we're very much looking forward to seeing our results from this school year. It's been 3 school years since we've had our CASP data or state SBAC data to look at. And that comparative data really does prove, at least historically, that even with a high percentage of teachers who are newer teachers, we're able to achieve excellent results with a high degree of parent satisfaction and family retention year over year. So I just want to underscore, when we talk about school quality, one of the things we can look at is teacher tenure, but I would also push this group to look at overall outcomes, to look at family satisfaction, to look at student retention rates as well.
Thank you for that answer, Danny. To me, compliance is important.
Yep.
So to make sure that we are compliant with all the rules and regulations that teachers need to be fully credentialed.
Yep, 100%.
I do have a question, but I'm going to refer the next question to Rudy. I think Rudy, you want to say something?
Follow up. Yep. Yeah, I just have a follow-up to this teacher credentialing, because I did bring it up at the beginning of the meeting. And Rocket Ship Spark, I specifically wanted to ask because of only 4 out of 20 teachers being fully credentialed. That's just unacceptable. Our students are not getting the highest quality education. Partnering with a new organization like National University is fine. But in 2019, Rocket Ship made a commitment to the Franklin-McKinley School District that they would improve their internal auditing and accountability for credentialing teachers, and you have failed. You failed to follow up with that plan. I have the plan right here. It's
Can I ask you specifically what elements we failed with? Because we've established a credentialing team that regularly reviews our credentials. We've been very collaborative and communicative with staff. And we've also, even though only 20% of teachers have their clear credential, 100% of teachers are fully credentialed within state and county guidance to serve students.
Okay, I'm not concerned about whether you're following ed code or not, because you are technically. But you only have 4 teachers out of 20 at Rocket.
Of our charter, yes.
Pardon?
Within the terms of our charter.
Right, but
And
you
within
only
state guidance.
You only have 4 teachers out of 20 that are fully credentialed at Rocket Ship Spark.
I want to be clear though, fully credentialed is a subjective term. Clear credential is the formal term for teachers who have cleared all state requirements to hold a permanent credential. Our teachers are credentialed. It might be provisional, it might be interim, but they're on the track to be fully credentialed.
Okay, I'm not going to get a debate about semantics, but I will say this. When we approved the Rocket Ship Spark charter, petition to charter 9 years ago, almost 100% of your teachers were fully credentialed that you started the school with. Now it's down to 4.
Trustee Rodriguez, we would love to understand better the concerns so that we can continue to work with the team and continue to communicate. So I think if we could have, I mean, I know that was even before my time, although I know I've seen it, but I think if I could hear what are the elements that we have failed, I think that would be helpful for us so that we can continue to make sure that we're working towards that. We have implemented a lot of things that we're very excited about, really proud. I think that's why we've seen the growth that we've seen. But I would
all the
love to
fluff is great.
understand.
Here's the letter. You can have it. I don't mind you taking the hard copy. I can email you a soft copy. But that was your agreement with the Franklin-McKinley School District that you guys would become more accountable with the issue of teacher credentialing, and you have not.
I think that's
Both
why I'm
schools.
asking for specificity, because according to us and our understanding, we haven't failed. So we would love to understand how we have failed so that we can have that.
You're
dialogue.
not, but here's the thing, you're not failing. You're failing the students. And I think the parents need to know the status of this teacher credentialing issue because they need to know that their kids are not getting the best quality education possible that's congruent with the Franklin-McKinley School District. Maybe we can get the superintendent to help so that we can become more consistent between our schools and the charter schools in terms of having fully credentialed teachers. What are we doing differently that maybe we might be able to help the charter schools so that they can increase their fully credentialed teaching staff? Because right now, it's very different than what our school district standards are.
I would actually push back here And I would argue that both Rocket Ship Mosaic and Rocket Ship Spark were named California Distinguished Schools within the past 2 years.
I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to debate different
But you are
points.
arguing that our schools are failing, and that's where I want to put a point.
That's
When
not
you
what I
said that we are
okay.
okay, we can roll
All
with
right.
that, but you argued that we're failing our
No.
students and that
No,
we're
that's
failing
not what
to
I'm saying.
inform our parents.
You're not failing.
Okay.
But it's not fair to the parents of their children of these children who are attending Rocket Ship, Spark, and Mosaic that are thinking they're getting the best quality education from fully credentialed teachers. That's just not fair. Not fair at all. And I think the parents need to know that.
Okay. Board members, do we have any other follow-up questions for that? If not, is there any other additional questions for Samantha? Seeing none. Oh, George.
I just had a follow-up to Board Member Rodriguez's question. If teachers are not, say, fully credentialed now, which, seen they're not, what would be the timeline in terms of your school setting a goal and meeting that goal? And maybe like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, can you give us an indication when you might meet that benchmark? So you could come back and comfortably address us on that issue, and that we feel comfortable, all of us, that the kids at your schools are getting the top-notch teachers that they deserve.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Trustee Sanchez. I think if there is a percentage that the board is hoping or expecting across certain years, I think that clarity and communication would be really helpful. I think when we came in front of the board a couple years ago and we said we would be compliant with the law, we are compliant with the law. And so I think that there may be some miscommunication, but I think that if there are expectations, that would be the first step. I think, and I'll let Danny chime in as well, but I also think about the median age of the teachers that we have. And I wonder also, what are the best practices? I know that at FMSD, you have teachers that have been with you for a really long time. And so obviously the numbers and the statistics are going to vary very different from a charter school, where a lot of the teachers, we're getting teachers who start as teacher support, that they haven't gone to college, and we're helping them. We've had teachers who are parents who we support to go to college and then become teachers of the classrooms. And so we're also supporting the community, which is one of the pillars that at Rocket Ship we have dedicated ourselves to by creating generational change. It's high quality education, but it's also supporting the whole community. And that means getting people where they're at and supporting them through their education process. And so that does come with other obstacles, and this being one of them. We are dedicated to our students. As Danny pointed out, we have high distinguished schools, California distinguished schools, because there is a commitment. I think about both of our principals here who are mothers, and just like the trustee here, and they're spending this evening and they spend endless hours to their students. So obviously everyone here cares about students and cares about academics. I think understanding what are the expectations, that might be helpful too. I think that would take some time for us to really go back and look at the data, which is why I think hearing from anecdotally, what is the numbers for the new teachers that that FMSD gets, and how long it takes for them to go through the process, how many of them retain. I think this is an area, there was a question earlier about collaboration. I think this is probably one of the areas where if you guys have that expertise, then we would love to learn from that and see what we can incorporate into our charters. Because this isn't just, I mean, I know you're saying it for us, but I know that this is happening everywhere. Also, there's a teacher shortage nationwide. There's an exodus in education. There's a lot of people that are turning over. This may be Rocket Ship today, but this will not only be Rocket Ship tomorrow. All of our schools are going to be impacted by this. And so I think this is an opportunity of how do we come together and how do we collaborate? Because it is us today, but it won't just be us. This is happening across all of our schools. I talk to educators in other states. It's already happening, and this is only going to continue growing.
And I would ask our superintendent maybe to go ahead and be involved in the process with you in terms of getting this problem squared away, so that we do have all your teachers fully credentialed. So I don't know, but the superintendent, do you have any thoughts in terms of how that might pan out? I don't want to put you in the hot seat, but
I mean, it is true. I mean, we are facing a teacher shortage, and And we ourselves have teachers that are not, don't have clear credentials as a result of the shortage. And we, unfortunately even have some vacancies still filled by long-term subs. And so it's real. I just want to make sure that, I do put on the record in terms of the letter that is being referenced. I do believe that you are in compliance. That letter was as a result of your failure to have somebody that had a credential authorized by CTC in the classroom when they didn't have one, and you were responsible for returning the apportionment of those days when the staff member was in the classroom when they didn't have a credential. And so we ourselves were negligent at that point as well, because we didn't, as a part of our accountability, hold you to that at that time. And together, I know that we've put things in place to make sure that our HR department is monitoring the credentials and ensuring that that doesn't happen again. And so far, we've noted that they all have the credential that they can obtain at that time from CTC. This is going to be a problem, and I know the state is putting a lot of money towards the teacher pipeline for those reasons, and especially in areas of most need, which is our students with special needs. Huge gaps in the number of candidates in our universities and preparation programs for what we are going to need in the future, and that is concerning to us here in Franklin-McKinley and across the education system. And where are we going to find the dedicated staff that we need for the students that have the most need? So I'm all there for, with you in terms of trying to brainstorm ways that we can uplift our community, because if they're already here and living here, then we have a greater opportunity for them to stay here. When we go out and recruit from outside of the Bay Area and they come here and they stay for a few years and they realize that they cannot live here, then we lose them. So I think one of the strategies that we need to look at is the families that are already here, living here, and how do we get some of them to enter into these programs and support them. And that's part of what the state is doing and putting a lot of money towards those efforts because we're going to need a huge workforce in the future.
Thank you for that one. And thank you, Danny. Actually, one last chance for board members to ask any questions. If not, thank you so much.
Just really quickly. So I've been there. I'm a special educator and I started off as an intern. That being said, I also understand the immense amount of, pressure when you're trying to engage in that learning process as an intern on top of teaching and really being there for students and families and community. So I guess my question is, knowing, speaking from my firsthand experience, right? That's a lot for teachers to be going through. When you have, the bulk of your teachers who are going through that experience, I mean, do you all feel it's acceptable that you're at that high percentage of teachers who are going through that, where they haven't had the time to really, get past just like the learning? I mean, we're constantly learning, but that initial it's like putting a faucet to your mouth, right? Where you're just trying to get all of this information from a compliance standpoint, but also just learning good teaching. I mean, what do you all feel about that?
Yeah, I will also say that resonates deeply with me, right? We hold regular listening meetings, and as a director of schools, I go and meet with staff at campuses, and we have heard from our teachers who are in their credentialing process, who are enrolled in national, that it is a lot, right? So I think the first line of defense for us is meeting and collaborating with the people at National University to try and look for more opportunities for overlap. So it's not an overwhelming, it's not the faucet to the mouth, or at least we can turn down the pressure on the water a little bit. But I think our major response in those cases is our coaching practices, which Mrs. Hanlon mentioned. It's consistent across our campuses. So we assign every single one of our teachers a coach, whether it's the principal or one of our assistant principals. They meet with them regularly, at least once a week. Observations are taking place at least once a week. So there's more work, right? Because you're learning how to teach at the same time that you are earning that credential and teaching. But at our schools, we hold a really high bar for our staff, and it also means that we hold a high bar for our coaches, and they work very closely with teachers to support them through those processes. I will say the proof is in our outcomes and our results and our family satisfaction and our student retention year over year. I will say, and to the question from Board Member Rodriguez, I would say there is absolutely opportunity for us to work on teacher retention longer term, right? Once teachers earn that cleared credential, do they stay with us? And what steps can we put in place to make that happen? So I also just want to say, please accept, I'm very passionate about this work, right? I send my own daughter to Rocket Ship Mosaic, my son who is now TK eligible. Thank you, Governor Newsom, for extending the deadline to February 2nd. He will be attending TK at one of our campuses next year. So as a parent, I also am deeply invested in the work we do. And I've seen amazing things from first and second year teachers who have interim or provisional credentials. I've seen them exceed averages for low-income students by 10, 20, 30% in terms of student proficiency. So I want you to accept also my passion for this work, but I am eager to continue to partner with this team to ensure that we can see greater levels of teacher retention long-term.
I think I can't help but wonder if those same teachers, 3 years down the line, once they're fully credentialed and don't have to worry about that initial intake, right? Just how the impact that they could make at that point. And I'm wondering why we're not there. Like where's that gap and why is that gap persisting where there aren't those teachers that you started off with?
I think it's a good question. I think there are a number of factors that contribute when teachers choose to leave a school, right? Is it compensation? Is it a life change, right? And I think Miss Janine spoke to this earlier, right? But many of our teachers are younger, right? And many of them have moved here from out of the area to come work at Rocket Ship, right? So part of what we're looking at too is what are our internal talent pipelines? What can we do to ensure that we're hiring more and more teachers who are locally based? And also compensation benchmarking to ensure that we're providing a competitive salary for teachers once they're into those third, fourth, and fifth years of teaching.
I hope you'll continue to look at those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have a vested interest in ensuring that we retain our teachers long-term. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you, Danny, and thank you, Samantha. Thank you. Sorry. I think that will be all the questions we have for tonight for Rocket Ship. Board members, I know we have a bylaw to extend the meeting past 10 p.m. So I entertain a motion to do that, seeing that we will not finish before 10 p.m. tonight.
I move that we extend the meeting past 10 p.m.
Second.
A motion has been made to move the meeting past 10 p.m. and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The meeting will now go over 10 p.m. and we will move on to our last school. And I hope the next board president knows to start with voices next time. So you guys can go first, but please come up for questions.
Hi, good evening. I'm Gabby Quintanilla and I'm the school principal at Voices here in Franklin-McKinley.
Awesome. And thank you so much for staying here. I know it's a late night and now you have a bunch of questions in front of you. So please read them out and answer them. And then if we have any additional questions, we'll address them to you afterwards.
Okay, thank you. So first question is, why did Voices not complete the table request on page 7 and didn't provide specific information in response to a second request? I'm not 100% sure why we haven't completed that table request, but I do have the breakdowns and demographics, and I can share that with everyone in writing tomorrow, if that's okay.
Is that acceptable? I know this is a question. Thank you. Please proceed to the second question.
Second question is how many teachers hold clear credentials versus prelim or intern credentials? And what % of teachers hold clear credentials? I don't have the specific breakdown between the prelim and interim. All of our teachers are credentialed, and the question is being asked throughout the evening. So I've been listening really attentively to the conversation, and it's really insightful, and it's really helpful. And I think it's a bigger conversation for us to have as educators. So I am open to the feedback and to the partnership with the district about it. We do have that clarity around our clear credentialed teachers in the report. Clear credentialed teachers we have 6, and then 12 without full credentials, and that includes our interns, provisionary, and permits.
Any follow-up questions to that, board members? Seeing none, I think we heard enough, but seeing none, please proceed to the next question.
Next question is how many of the special education department teachers are new and how are they receiving support? We have 2 education specialists on staff this year, and one of them is new to the role. She is not new to our school or to supporting students with that receive special education services. She was a paraprofessional or just a special education associate teacher, not just. She was a special education associate teacher last school year, and stepped into the education specialist role this year. So she's receiving ongoing training from our student services manager and our director of special populations. And then we provide trainings through our SELPA as well for her to attend. There was a follow-up question to that around co-teaching and if that's currently being implemented. It is part of our inclusive model to be able to offer that to our students. And our teachers this year, it's been a little bit difficult with having teachers do a lot of the push-in, especially at the beginning of the year when we were quarantining or trying our best to keep some distance between students. And so we're kind of getting back into the rhythm of it now that things are settling down with the pandemic. So it's something that we're looking forward to continuing next school year with co-teaching. So we haven't been as diligent with it this school year. So we try. Our education specialists do a lot of the push and support, but then they also do some pull out depending on what's on the student's IEP. And then there was another follow-up question there about options available to students who may need more support than in an inclusion setting. And let's see. So we'll usually just provide services that are required on the student's IEP. And then if we do need to go outside of that in contract, we will. But we look at a student's IEP plan to make decisions there.
Yeah, I know, board members, do you have any follow-up questions? Mona?
I guess my question is, how is the decision made to unilaterally move co-teaching to next year? And how, I mean, in terms of, because student services are written into IEPs, which are legally what you're required to service them with. So were those changes made to IEPs to reflect the changes to the program, or what happened exactly?
So if students are receiving the services that are required on the IEP, that can look like push-in services with the education specialist providing the services inside the classroom in a small group or collaborating with the teacher. There are specific co-teaching techniques that we haven't had an opportunity to revisit this school year through our professional development, so they aren't as consistently implemented by staff. And so that's what we're looking to kind of revamp next school year. But students that are receiving services in the classroom are receiving those through push-in services.
Okay, so the students are still receiving push-in,
Yes.
pull-out services.
Yes.
Based on their IEP.
Yes.
Please proceed with the last question.
The last question is, do students have PE?
Oh, wait.
And I know that's a question that may have come from our students based on the observations or the visit from earlier this year. PE isn't something that we promise in our charter for our families or for our students, but we do offer an enrichment block for our students. And that's when we have a combination of some structured play or unstructured play for students. Structured play can look like students learning the rules and how to play specific sports. So this year, our students have learned volleyball, and they consistently play volleyball during the enrichment block, or soccer or flag football. And so that's something that they work on in collaboration with our Dean of Culture and with our associate teachers that lead our enrichment block for our students.
Great. Board members, any follow-up questions on that? And do we have any additional questions for voices? If not, that sounds great. Thank you so much for being here tonight, everyone.
Thank you.
All charter schools. Okay, so we are now done with item 5.01. We'll move on to consent items. Board members, actually, wait. I will have to read this, and I'll read this for consent items 6, 7, and 8. Members of the public may address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with Board Bylaws 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on consent items at this time? Seeing none, board members, is there any items in consent items 6, 7, or 8 that you would like to pull? Not, then I will entertain a motion for item 6.
Mr. President, I move that we approve item 6.01.
Second.
Item 6.01 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to consent item 7. Board members?
Mr. President, I move to approve consent item 7.01 to 7.06.
Second.
Consent item 7.01 through 7.06 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to consent items 8, construction items. Board members?
Mr. President, I move to approve consent items 8.01 through 8.04.
Second.
Construction items 8.01 through 8.04 has moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now moving on to action items. 9.01 personnel report, Mr. Vice President.
Hey, Mr. President, I move that the personnel report be approved as submitted and that the retirement for the following employee be approved. Renee Moss, HR technician in HR, effective 6/30/2022. The return from leave for the following employee be approved. Abigail Faria, teacher at Dahl, effective 8/10/2022. And the resignation for the following employees be approved. Angela Malley, psychologist, CCA, effective 6/24/2022. Christine Simonson, teacher, Shirakawa, effective 6/17/2022.
Second.
9.01, the personnel report has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to item 9.02, April 26, 2022, board meeting minutes. Board members take a few minutes to review this, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve item 9.02, the board meeting minutes from April 26, 2022.
Second.
Item 9.02, the board meeting minutes for April 26, 2022 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to item 9.03, approval of the tentative agreement between FMEA and the district from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024.
FMEA and the district have reached a tentative agreement on Articles 1, agreement, 2, definitions, B, compensation, 4, hours of employment, 5, leaves, 6, assignment, transfer, and early retirement, 8 class size, 9 evaluation, 12 organizational security, and 18 teacher rights. These TAs are being brought to you for approval contingent on the approval from the County Office of Education. Compensation for the 21-22 school year is 2% on schedule and 2% off schedule, retroactive to July 1, 2021. Compensation for the 22-23 school year shall be increased by COLA as specified by the School Services of California Adopted Budget Dashboard. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the tentative agreement between FMEA and the district.
Board members, do we have any questions on this? Comments?
I just want to thank the district and FMEA for their collaboration and hard work in reaching an agreement. It says a lot about our teams, and it makes me proud to be a part of this district. Thank you.
I have one question on that. It says it goes out to June 30th, 2024. Is that the agreement, a 3-year agreement then?
The agreement that we're currently under has expired, so that's 21.
Because I'm trying to get this understanding, like we negotiated for 2 years, but it seems like it's out for 3 years, or am I doing my math incorrectly?
So the whole
Oh,
contract, that's a whole contract, and but the provisions of salary are for the 2 years. Then we can reopen for 2 articles after that. Because this time it was the entire contract that we were considering. Normally, we only have the 2 items, the salary and one other, that each side can pull in terms of negotiating, but this year it was the full contract. That's why there's so many articles that we negotiate.
So the 21-22 school years and 22-23 are accounted for in terms of salary, but the 23-24 school years is still up and it will be open for renegotiation at that point.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Just want to make sure I understood it correctly. Board members, any other questions, comments on this? Great. I'll entertain a motion to.
I'd like to make a motion on item 9.04, approval of management and confidential compensation adjustment.
No,
Okay.
not.
Oh, no, sorry, I'm jumped. 9.03.
Item 9.03, approval of the tentative agreement between FMEA and the district from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And congratulations to the district and FMEA.
Nice.
Moving on to item 9.04, approval of management and confidential compensation adjustment. Superintendent Annette.
There's a need to recognize the hard work being performed by our administrators. We've implemented many changes and set high expectations for our administrators, and in order to stay competitive with surrounding districts, we're recommending that all district administrators, certificated, classified / confidential administrators, be given the 3% on schedule, 2% off schedule, retroactive to July 1st, 2021. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the management and confidential salary adjustment.
Board members, do we have any questions here?
Mr. President, I move that we approve item 9.04.
Second.
Item 9.04 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now we're moving on to 9.05, approval of assistant superintendent compensation adjustment. Superintendent Annette.
Oh, this one I'll present since
present
it
this
is,
one?
there's a conflict of interest in
Oh, right,
this
I'm sorry.
situation.
There you go. I didn't click on that thing. Superintendent Cruz, please.
Yes, thank you. For all the same reasons that Assistant Superintendent Ned Grasti just mentioned in regards to the hard work and the expectations we have for our assistant superintendents. And again, to keep the salary schedules competitive. So if and when we have vacancies in those, and I'm hoping that that is a long time from now, that we are able to recruit and fill these positions. It's my recommendation that we make the adjustments to the salary schedule in accordance to what was just recently approved for FMEA. 3% on and 2% on.
Board members, do you have any questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the salary adjustment for all assistant superintendents.
Second.
Item 9.05 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And for item 9, moving on to 9.06, superintendent compensation adjustment, I will speak to this. And it's just like Superintendent Cruz and Grasty has said before, the hard work of our superintendent is very noticed. And of course, this is something that is very, very well deserved. So board members, do you have any questions on this? If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve item 9.06, the superintendent compensation adjustment.
Second.
Item 9.06 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great. Now we can move on to item 9.07, the disclosure of collective bargaining agreement with Franklin-McKinley Education Association. This was submitted by Jason. So Superintendent Cruz, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I'll take this. So in accordance to AB 1200 and AB 2756, whenever the district is proposing salary increases, it is required by that the district submit this to the county for their review to ensure that the costs associated with these increases, the district can meet its financial obligations in the current year that is being offered and 3 years out. So we have submitted the document to the County Office of Education. They've reviewed it, and they did not indicate that there were any concerns in regards to the ability of the district meeting its financial obligations given these changes to the salary schedules. If you will notice that for management, what you approved was simply the 21-22 salary increases and not the 22-23 COLA adjustment, that FMEA agreement that we have. And that is so that we give the district an opportunity to look at our finances once the budget is approved by the state. And, at this point, we wouldn't have to put it on our balance sheet and our obligations in the subsequent years. And only after we analyze the budget and believe that we are able to afford the increase would we bring something to the board in accordance to what has already been offered to FMEA. So that is why you'll see the difference between what is the cost in FMEA and management only for 21-22 and then nothing in the 22-23. Any questions that the board may have?
Members? Very happy to see this come through. So board members, I'll entertain a motion.
Superintendent Cruz, at what point will that, in terms of the COLA adjustment and calculations, when can the board and the public anticipate to know that?
So as it's been our practice, we will have a presentation to the board, a 45-day budget review. And that usually is in our first meeting in August. By that time, the state would have already met its a statutory obligation of approving a budget by the end of June. We would also have at that point been able to adjust our own budgets and the impact of whatever the state happens to approve, and then any final budget trailer kind of language adjustments that also will be required. So by the first meeting in August, we will bring to the board an analysis of any potential changes that the final budget from the state compared to what the board would approve in June at our second meeting.
Does that mean any potential additional in terms of the adjustment for COLA? Will that be presented at that time, or is that going to be at a subsequent board date?
Are you asking in regards to management or just understanding what that impact is for FMEA?
I'm asking for FMEA members, right?
Sure,
Like what
sure.
does that?
So right, so it says COLA. So there's, we sort of understand what COLA might be based on the information we have, and that's why we put 656 in there, knowing that that may change. And so whether it's up or down, that will be known by the first meeting in August, and we will report back to the board what that final COLA number will be and how that is going to be implemented in terms of the cost either way. So by that meeting, we will know what that number will be.
So that meaning that number will be finalized by the 1st of August, I mean, the first week of August, the COLA numbers for the second year?
It will, because the COLA is part of the state budget. So the state budget will be approved by the legislature, you know, since they put the rules about not going past June 30th and it cost them, they're pretty good at passing budgets by June 30th. Where it gets a little sticky, sometimes they have some trailer language, but the bulk of the budget is approved by June 30th. And by that time, we will know what COLA the state budget will have. And that's what we have agreed with FMEA, that we would make the salary adjustment for next year based on that number. Right now, all analysis are that it is going to be about 6.56, but that may change. And so we will know by the first meeting in August what that number will be, and we'll report that to the board.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions on this, board members? Not, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the disclosure of collective bargaining agreement with FME.
Second.
Item 9.07, the disclosure of collective bargaining agreement with FMEA has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
So now we will move on to item 9.08, the declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Superintendent Grasty.
Regulations from the State Commission on Teacher Credentialing require an annual statement so that emergency credentials can be utilized throughout the year when necessary. The regulations require that this item be approved by the Board of Education as an action item, not as a part of the consent agenda. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the annual declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Great. Board members, do you have any questions for Ned on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve item 9.08, the declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Second.
Item 9.08 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to item 9.09, resolution number 2022-25, order of election, specifications of the election order and consolidation requests. Superintendent Cruz.
Yes, thank you. So as required by law, the board needs to approve this resolution calling for an election of 3 seats that are up for re-election, which is Board Member Tran, Rodriguez, and Martinez. Term ends 2022. And so this resolution is notifying the county that they are to put this on the ballot and make that public to the community, that interested community citizens of the district can submit to be considered for the election. It also stipulates that the district will pay up to $1,000 for filing such statements, and that the candidates don't have to pay upfront, but that the district will pay the county directly. So those are the parts of the resolution that pertain to calling for the election.
Thank you, Juan. Is there any questions on this, board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move for approval on item 9.09, resolution number 2022-25, order of election, specifications of the election order and consolidation request.
Second.
Item 9.09, resolution number 2022-25 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. As unanimous, and we are moving on to item 9.10, resolution number 2022-24, board compensation for a missed meeting. Superintendent Cruz?
Yeah, so we bring this forward for the law and the missed meeting by Board President Tran for illness.
Thank you. Board members, I'll entertain a motion at any time.
I'll make a motion to approve item 9.10, resolution number 2022-24, board compensation for a missed meeting. Board Member Tan Tran.
Second.
9.10, resolution number 2022-24 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I abstain. Moving on to item 9.11, resolution number 2022-26 in support of LGBTQ Pride Month. This is submitted by our very own board member, Alberta.
Yes, thank you. So this is a part of this is an annual resolution that we bring forward every year in recognition of Pride Month. But there are also some updates or some changes that I'm recommending we consider. First, including the more inclusive term, so to include LGBTQIA and the plus, because there are more identity markers there that I'd like us to include. And then in addition, if you take a look at the be it further resolved clauses, there's been a lot of discussion, both nationally and right here in California, about what should and should not be taught in schools. And we know that in the state of California, there is legislation with Assembly Bill 493, specifically to make sure that training is provided to school site staff to make sure that there's support for students, to increase strategies, inclusive practices, and to improve the overall climate. And so that's something as a district we are committed to making sure is in place, not just for compliance with the law, but as a district that values diversity and inclusion and fostering that sense of belonging. That's something we need to continue to make sure is being implemented. In addition, it's asking that the superintendent, in light of all of the, I want to say controversy, but there's been a lot of spotlight and frankly a lot more hate targeted towards individuals. And so directing the superintendent to establish an LGBTQIA+ task force that's inclusive of students, that's centering student voice, that's including staff and community members, to conduct an assessment, really looking at the gaps in our practices and policies, looking at barriers and opportunities, and really trying to identify what the differences in experiences are that include factors like sexual orientation and gender identities and intersectional factors as well. And that the task force will take a look at these issues and then deliver findings and goal recommendations to the board by the end of the next school year. And then finally, in addition to continuing to celebrate the strides made, right, as a part of Pride Month, the opportunity for others to also learn about discrimination and equality, making sure that's taught in our classrooms, and also supporting legislation to make sure we're continuing to create safe, supportive, accepting school environments, and to make sure our staff is equally prepared to do so.
Board members, any questions, comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify on page 2 at the bottom, there may be a typo. There may be missing identifier markers. I think they were called.
Yeah, I just noticed another one. We'll correct it before we sign it on. Yet further resolve. Third one, fourth one. So I'll correct those before we send it out.
Sometimes going back and forth between the drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
I'll skim it once again before we send it out for signature. So it's the one that goes out as the correct.
So board members, if there's no other questions, comments, then I can entertain a motion for this.
And I believe Superintendent Cruz, in terms of the flag raising.
Yes,
can you speak
so,
to that, please?
yes, so we will, I will actually be announcing this, we will be at a school site this year. In 2019, if those of you that were here, we did it at Silverdale, and we had an opportunity to work with a student group there, the club, the LGBTQ club that Silverdale had at that time there. So I'm looking for a school site that we will do the flag raising the first week in June. So those details, you'll get the date in the school by the end of this week. I'm checking with a couple of schools just to make sure that we don't run into other events like maybe testing or things like that. And so I want to be able to do it at a school site versus here at the district.
Board members? Do you have any questions, comments? Not, then I'll entertain a motion to.
Move that we approve item 9.11, resolution 2022-26 in support of LGBTQIA+.
Item 9.11, resolution number 2022-26 in support of LGBTQIA+ Pride Month has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we're moving on to item 9.12, resolution number 2022-27 in support of the Congressional IDEA Full Funding Act reintroduced on November 16, 2021, HR 5984 and S 3213. This is also submitted by Board Member Salbert.
So the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act was first enacted in 1975 to help ensure that all students with disabilities have access to a free and appropriate public education. And since that, 45 years ago, the current federal investment in IDEA is less than 14%. So although it's mandated and we are grateful for a lot of those protections that those provide for students, the chronic underfunding of IDEA by the federal government places a lot of additional funding burden on states, local school districts, and taxpayers to pay for those the necessary and needed services. And so compounded with the existing pressure that's already placed on local budget dollars to cover the federal shortfall, and its impact on other school programs that are also beneficial to students with disabilities. What this resolution does is it asks that the board make a statement saying that we support IDEA, specifically the Full Funding Act that will help strengthen federal investment in special education by authorizing a 10-year plan to fully fund the federal share of IDEA. It also makes a statement that the board would urge Congress to show bipartisan support for the passage of the IDEA Full Funding Act, and that our school board remains committed to providing students with disabilities and the families that they need and deserve.
Great, thank you, Mona. Board members, do you have any questions, comments on this? Not, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 2022-27 in support of the Congressional IDEA Full Funding Act reintroduced on November 16, 2021, HR 5984 and S or Senate 3213.
Second.
9.12, resolution number 2022-27 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 9.13, the adoption of Amplified Science curriculum for grades K through 6. This is for Dr. Sarah Feldman, but I think Superintendent Black, you can.
I will report on her behalf. So our director of CNI, Dr. here on our last board meeting, April 26th, and hearing on the K through 6 science pilot process participated in this year. So we had page-
Amy, that mic is cutting off, so maybe come up here or. Okay. Yeah, I think coming up, because I've heard that this one is much clearer when they broadcast out to.
Presented the recommendation of the committee to adopt Amplify Science for our kindergarten through sixth grade program. It's recommended that the Board of Education adopt Amplify Science curriculum for grades K through 6.
Great, thank you for that, Amy. Board members, do we have any questions on this?
Just to clarify, is this, as I recall, the science had last been updated about 15 years ago?
Yeah, it's we haven't formally adopted a science. I mean, we've responded to the NGSS standards through our supplemental curriculum, but we haven't had a formal science adoption in a while. That's correct.
Okay.
Board members, any other, Manuel?
So the $1.4 million is going to cover 8 years worth of digital licenses, or is it going to be renewed every year? So it's 1.4, 1.4.
No, that is like the total amount. If we were to purchase all K through 6 at once, so that would include, it's a multi-year contract. So it'd be 5 years of consumable and then 8 years of digital. If we were, to do the entire purchase all at once.
May I ask a quick follow-up to that? So, I mean, consumables can vary, right? Because or the number of consumables varies based, or the number that will actually be consumed will vary based on our enrollment. So is there any type of flexibility to kind of account for that so we don't have too much or too?
Yeah, so I mean, we pay for it regardless. So what we could do in terms of resources and, also making sure that we're not using too much paper. So typically my experience with when we're doing a multi-year implementation is that each year you check in with the publisher and you let them know what your current needs are. And then they may see flexibilities, right? Like your initial purchase, maybe we had a high kindergarten that year, but as they roll through, then those numbers, right, it needs to follow them. So there's flexibility in terms of the total amount. It's usually like a bulk amount that we're allocated. And then we can specify year over year where we need resources. And if we don't need them, we can say we don't need additional resources. But typically we do, especially with the newer adoption.
And part of this is as we roll over, we may have unused resources for year 6 where we may not even need to purchase year 6. So the savings is still there. So we're not paying for something that we won't use, but rather if we are consistently under enrolled based on the current numbers, then in year 6, we may not have the need to purchase that year's consumables. So there's no risk to the school district in regards to a declining enrollment and entering into these contracts because the content and the consumables don't change all year over year. And so we will reap the benefit in the year 6 when we would have to purchase them.
And does the same apply to digital licenses?
So the digital license is at 8 years. So
But are we charged by the number of?
No.
Thank you. Yes.
Any additional questions, board members? All right, now entertain a motion for this adoption.
President, I move to approve item 9.13, the adoption of Amplify Science curriculum for grades K through 6.
Second.
Item 9.13 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And now we're moving on to item 9.14, adoption of teachers curriculum initiative, social studies for grades 7 and 8.
So on April 26, Dr. Sarah Feldman conducted a public hearing for the board to review and consider materials that were brought forward from our 7th and 8th grade social studies teachers. So they entered a pilot process as well for new social studies curriculum, and overwhelmingly they selected TCI, which is Teachers Curriculum and Initiative. And so tonight, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the adoption of TCI Social Studies curriculum for grades 7 and 8.
Great. Board members, do we have any questions, comments on this?
I do, just kind of similar to what I said before. This is about $250,000. Is this going to be every year as well? We'll be paying.
So for this one, I think the total amount, and it should be a multi-year, yeah, it's a 6-year contract. And so for the 6 years, the total would be $230,000. Yeah, so that would be the one-time amount that would cover our 6-year adoption.
Any other questions? I also like the comment that we have here, the teachers unanimously voted to adopt this, actually.
Yeah.
And so the benefit of, the benefit of some of these and why the companies want to have us do multi-years, we lock in current cost versus anything 5 years from now. And so, there's that also element in why the companies and the companies, right, then they know that they're secure for 5 years. So it benefits both the district and the companies to enter into these multi-year as opposed to year-to-year purchases.
I did think of a question. So being a multi-year, does that also, if there's updates on the curriculum, will they provide us those updates?
Yes, they typically do. So if there's a major rewrite on a chapter or a section, then they will provide updates for that.
Thank you.
Of multi-year contracts. I think that's all the questions we have on the on that one. So board members, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve item 9.14, adoption of the Teachers Curriculum Initiative, TCI Social Studies for grades 7 and 8.
Second.
Item 9.14 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And now on to our last adoption, 9.15, adoption of creative curriculum for TK and high scope curriculum for PK.
Yeah, so a public hearing was conducted on April 26 to review pilot materials for our TK and pre-K programs to look at curriculum for early learning. At that time, it was recommended that that we adopt for TK program, the creative curriculum, and for our pre-K program, high scope. So it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the adoption of creative curriculum for TK and high scope for pre-K.
Amy, board members, do you have any questions and comments on this?
Quick clarifying question, because I know Dr. Feldman had mentioned that both sets of teachers for PK and TK would be able to interchangeably use materials. Is that still accurate with the way that this is?
So what was unique about this particular pilot is that we were actually required to purchase all the curriculum. So you don't see an attachment of additional costs because we already own the curriculum. And of course, if we grow in program, then we would, look at purchasing adopted curriculum like we would any classroom that we add. But yes, they do have the ability to, for TK, they can supplement with high scope, and then for high scope pre-K, they can supplement with creative curriculum.
And I'll just emphasize the supplement. By the approval is that high scope is the adopted curriculum for PK and creative or TK, but because we have the materials, they can pull and supplement. But the expectation is that the core curriculum is what you're approving.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Board members, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
President, I move that we approve item 9.15, the adoption of creative curriculum for TK and high scope curriculum for PK.
Second.
Item 9.15 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy. Now moving on to item 9.16, reporting on delegating authority to take the necessary action to protect students and staff from the spread of coronavirus. So Superintendent Cruz, take it away.
Yes, thank you. I just like to report that, we are in our second week of the changes to our mask mandate, and we have had some positive feedback from our community and students and staff by and large are continuing to use their mask by choice. And so that is something that we have also seen across the county, that when they made those changes, that was the case, that most students and staff, made that choice. And so we are continuing to do our daily, our weekly testing at all the school sites, and offer also daily here, morning and afternoon, here at the district office for all families and also students as they are identified as a close contact or they have questions or concerns about maybe being positive. They come here. We're open from 8:30 to noon, and then from 2 to 5 as a drop off. No appointment, no insurance, none of that. And so we are also continuing to order the necessary antigen rapid tests that the state is providing to school districts, and we continue to use those as ways to provide students and staff in the event that there's a question. And so we have had a couple instances where Color Lab, our provider, initially had indicated they were a positive, and then after reviewing, there were some technical issues with their equipment where they were then changed from positive to they call it failed, not a non-positive. So, to alleviate concerns from families and staff, we provide them the rapid antigen test at their school sites, so as to have a reassurance that they're not positive and move from there. So we are making changes to our decision tree in accordance to the public health decision tree, where the distinction between a unvaccinated and vaccinated exposed staff member is no longer made. So everybody's treated the same. And so I'm working with our association to sort of have them make sure that they understand what those changes will be before we implement those district-wide. We are going to be making a recommendation that our daily screening is done by our families and no longer needing for the families to show their screen, their clear screen as they enter the grounds. But we still won't allow families for the rest of the school year to come into our campuses unless they're coming in to some of our celebrations or TK or kinder and sixth grade celebrations that happen typically during the school day. We've given guidance to the schools in regards to how to conduct those events. We want to make sure that we're celebrating our students, but we're still maintaining a safe environment for students that are on campus during that day. And so we're just looking forward to the end of the school year at this point. Hoping to continue to, keep our staff and our students and our community safe. As I'm sure you've seen, there has been a slight uptick in terms of the overall 7-day average of positive cases in the county, certainly not anywhere near where we were back in January. But something to just keep an eye on, make sure that we're not having opportunities where we may spread that unnecessarily. So we're still being cautious, but we're starting to kind of pull back on some of those restrictions and make it easier for our families and our staff to get back to whatever normal is going to be after this. Any questions that the board may have?
Ma'am?
I just wanted to clarify. I think, did you say that with regards, I think it's Lentevio, or what we used to call company nurse, so the kids don't have to show it anymore? Are we saying that at some point we're not even going to be entering in the information, or we're going to ride that out?
So I believe that at the conclusion of the school year, if things continue, that will not be something that will be carried over to the next school year. We're going to continue to ask families to self-screen, just not necessarily asking them to wait around the gates and show, in high school, that's less of an issue because most high school students have their own cell phones and they show it. For our kiddos, the parents have to wait around, right? just, the little ones in terms of having them show the green screen. And so that's the part of that we're still wanting them to, be cognizant of making sure that they're screening every morning, but not necessarily having to show the screen to be able to enter the campus. And that also will ease the drop off that sometimes in some of our schools can be very congested already. And some of them are having to wait around to try and get their, the little ones into the campus. But we still, just like with MS, right? We're going to ask them to continue to screen because it's important.
Members, do we have any further questions for Juan? All right, so we'll move on to item 10, communications from our superintendent, Superintendent Cruz.
Yes, just very quickly, just a reminder that we are going to be having our staff appreciation day. We're still moving forward with that unless things drastically change over the next week or so. It is outdoors, it is optional. And so we will continue. We are moving forward with the staff appreciation celebration on the 26th, 3:30 start time. Again, we start off with food and games and things like that. And then, our program usually starts around 4 o'clock. I invite the board and everybody to come and help us celebrate our staff. I think we're all due to be able to do that in person. And so I just wanted to, remind of that date. Like I said earlier, I will put out the date of our flag racing, either going to be the 1st, the 2nd, or the 3rd at one of our schools. And so that date will be sent out, and then we will include sort of the program for that day. The reason for wanting to go to the schools is I want to engage students, right? It's one thing for us to do it here, and we still will raise it here. But my goal always in these things is to engage students and bring awareness and have them be have a voice. And so that's one of the reasons why I feel strongly. And we did that the last time when we raised we recognized Black April at Windmill. So anytime we have an opportunity to have students be part of that, I'm going to make that possible. So those dates will come out shortly. And then I did share with the board the schedule of all the promotions. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please do indicate if you plan on coming to any of those, so that we can make sure that we understand who's coming. And also in some cases we try to make sure that we reserve parking in an area where it's easily accessible to the location where we have our promotion. So other than that, I am looking forward to the end of the school year. It has been challenging, but I was over at Franklin yesterday all day, and it was one of those days where it's like, this is why we do it. And the kids, they bounce back, and they've been such. It was such a great thing to see the kids just being kids, and walking into the classrooms, and the students just engaging with themselves, engaging with the staff. And I get to see that here and there when I visit the schools, but being there all day long and seeing the trajectory of when they get dropped off and when they get picked up is different. So kind of gave me a little bit more energy to get through June 17th. But looking forward to the celebrations at the end of the year. It's one of those highlights that we have as well. And then I just want to, tomorrow is our official teacher day of the teacher. So I'll send a message out, and then next week will be the classified employee of the week, a week. And so we'll send something out as well for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan. We will now move on to item 11, communications from Board of Education. Item 11.01, board member reports. And tonight we'll start with George.
No report.
Mona?
Yeah, I want to share. I was able to attend the first API Elected Officials Summit this past weekend, and had a couple hundred API elected officials from across the state. We talked about a variety of topics, which I won't get into at the moment, but I think it was really productive and good conversation. And then just echoing Superintendent Cruz's comments and wishing happy day of the teacher and classified employees week.
Thank you. Manuel?
Yeah, I just wanted to report back that I had a very unpleasant conversation with a member of at least my community who actually wasn't aware that I was a board member with regards to outreach at Communication Hill. He has a student who is 4 years old, and he was very energized and passionate about not hearing from our school district. And so by coincidence, I also found out that Shirakawa is having a welcome kind of situation going on Thursday. And to this day, we still haven't received anything on Communication Hill. So I know that we're going to be talking about this in June, which is a month too late for that event. So pretty pleased with sugar on top. I really, really, really want enrollment to be a top priority as we move forward, because we're going to be having very difficult conversations. And it really, this is where the rubber meets the road when I have a parent confronting me at my mailbox, not really knowing where to go. And that's something that, I had to kind of bring them down and say, hey, we'll roll out the red carpet for you, but, there's only so much words that I can do. And that's something that I hope that when we get into this discussion, I think in June, we'll figure out what we do about those folks, because they're thirsty. They're really thirsty, and they want desperately to be a part of us. And the school that, is being contemplated up there is going to be too late, for this 4-year-old. It's not going to be next year. So we need to kind of have a plan for them. So I'm just kind of throwing it out there as I can, as often as I can. This is something that, sign me up. I'd love to be a part of this, outreach. I'd love to be a part of, communicating this out there, because there's a lot of new housing going up there, a lot of young parents who've, now that the pandemic is kind of winding down, now starting to say, where do we lay roots? And this is their home.
Thank you, Mayo.
I'll follow up, but we did send out door hangers, and so I see where those went out, and so I will follow up.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Rudy?
Okay, so I think that between our last board meeting, all of us attended the flag raising for Black April. So I was very proud to see the entire board attending that event, and like to thank Superintendent Cruz for helping organize that with the principal, because it was outstanding. And I guess, Amy, you were part of that too as well. Credit goes to you as well. And you were there. So, and Annette, you were there too, weren't you? Oh, I want to give you credit for it, but it was a great event, and it was so nice to see a lot of Vietnamese media attending, and I believe we recorded it through our recording vendor. So I really enjoyed that event. And I also attended last Friday the Latino Literacy Project celebration at Hellier. Principal Jose Jacinto facilitated that program. And I mean, and I know Superintendent Cruz was there as well, and he mentioned already that he'd like to replicate that throughout the district, because seeing the faces of these parents who were learning English, and then they also had a potluck. I mean, it was just, the pride was just incredible. So I would encourage us to see if we can do that throughout the district, because I think we'll get a lot of people signing up for it, and it would be well worth doing some kind of recognition at a district-wide level. That's it.
Rudy. And for my report, I did go out to the Black April flag raising, and what better place to do it than Windmill Springs. It's nice to see the students out there, and then especially really nice to see the program afterwards, which was orchestrated by our very own teacher at Willow Springs, Mr. Kui Pham. And I gotta say that performance itself gave me at least a good look at some of the history there that even I didn't hear from before. And he took us all from 1955 all the way to present day, which was to me a really outstanding program. And I give him a lot of, I thank him and appreciate him a lot for writing that out and having students perform that program. Other than that, that's about it for my end. So we will move on to item 11.02, the agenda item requests. Board members, do we have any agenda item requests at this time? I believe we have dates for all of them now besides the ethnic studies. So thank you, Juan, for doing that. Moving on to item 12, future business. We have none. Item 13, future meeting dates. You can see that by yourself, but we have no more parent meetings in the next 3 meetings we have. And we have a recess in July. Then item 14, closed session. There's no reason to go back to closed session. So for item 15, adjournment, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
The motion has been moved for adjournment and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we are done at 10:40.